Talking about the reign of Sultan Nasiruddin, there is also a very little known about what happened during the last days of Sultan Nasiruddin. So it is said that the chief topic of the remaining 9 years of Sultan Nasiruddin's reign, it was the struggle of the two groups of Turkish Khans and the Maliks for power, and it is necessary to examine his approach to the problem. Gratitude is a necessary virtue, writes Minhaj, a historian, and since he owed more to Balban or Ulu Khan than to anyone else, he naturally praises Balban more than others. But he was under obligations to almost all Turkish Maliks, and so far as possible, he overlooks their crimes, even when they amounted, as in the case of Sher Khan and Kushlu Khan, to an attempt to deflect the Mongol invasions from Persia to China in northern India. Further, he proposed to publish his book during lifetime. He had to protect himself and the interest of his family against any foreseen changes in the Turkish political regime. On the other hand, Sultan Nasiruddin was under no obligation to Imaduddin Rehan, an Indian political adventurer who had no following either among the Turkish officers or the public, and had been dead for about 8 years when Minhaj brought Tabqat to a close. The great Maliks of opposition party, though defeated, were still alive, and Minhaj had no desire to be unfair to them, but the dead Rehan could be blamed for all their faults and nobody was concerned to defend him. So it is said that Sultan Nasiruddin's reign is considered to be the adventure and an opposition and leg pulling of two nobles, the noble groups, which is supposed to be the ruler of the entire Sultanate, and we can cover an other important aspect, and it is the estimate of Sultan Nasiruddin's Mahmud's posturing estimate and Balban as a sultan. Sultan Nasiruddin, like we have to focus on Sultan Nasiruddin. Sultan Nasiruddin is wrongly described as a very God-fearing, pious and amicable person born in 1229. He was not more than 17 years old when he ascended the throne. He knew the fate of his predecessors and had no alternative but to leave administration to Balban's hand. Numerous stories have come down to us which speak of Nasiruddin's simplicity, generosity, thrift, and devotion to his faith, and also of his aloofness from the state affairs. But the author, while analyzing the frontier policy of Delhi Sultan, writes that such an insecure situation demanded not only a defensive but an aggressive policy. The next Sultan, the young and zealous Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud, whom the contemporary chronicles and their modern replicas have sought to paint as a pious and mild prince who loved seclusion and was therefore a willing puppet in the hands of Balban, took up the questions of the frontier defense with characteristics earnest and zeal. Like it is said that it is not a true version if we portray Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud as a puppet sultan due to his policy towards Mongol in the northern areas and to the other oppressors which were in the northern areas of Hind, and the policy which he utilized, it was a policy which had a lot of courage on the part of Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud. So it is also right that urgency of securing the northwest frontiers was first to attract Sultan Nasiruddin's attention, and on it he focused all his energies immediately after his accession to the throne. His first act was to march out with his forces towards Multan and Sindh with the tired generals of the realm, and with the object of destroying the Mongols and dealing effectively with the Ghakkars. The Mughals were becoming a growing menace. In the beginning of that year, they had made several raids upon Multan, Lahore, and had extorted an enormous booty in gold, silk, and other valuables from citizens, besides carrying away hundreds of people as captives from the two cities. So it is said that it was a big expedition on the part of Sultan, that he tried to conquer the northern India, and it also needs a great zeal on the part of the Sultan, and it is not correctly portrayed that he was not a very strong ruler.